Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Rogue One video for all the Easter eggs, the references to the other films in the canon. They even had stuff from the TV shows in there too. So here we go. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the movie yet. The IMAX giveaway is still going on. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. Be sure to click that bell to enable alerts so that you don't miss out on anything. So there's a whole lot of the other movies inside this movie. It features a lot of characters that show up during episode 4. But the title itself is an Easter egg for Rogue Squadron. Rogue One is sort of like the beginning of the idea for Rogue Squadron. Like they say in the movie, there is no Rogue One. Well, there is now. So it's sort of the birth of that. Rogue Squadron would go on to become the most elite fighter unit inside the Rebellion and then eventually the New Republic during the Expanded Universe novels. The villain Orson Krennic wore a white uniform that's kind of an Easter egg for Grand Admiral Thrawn from the Expanded Universe, but there are other Imperials that wear white uniforms. His special elite troopers, called Death Troopers wearing the black uniforms, are actually an Easter egg from Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, the video game, where they appeared as Death Troopers for the first time. So there are even Easter eggs for the video games in here, the really old video games too. Mads Mikkelsen's character, named Galen, is also named after Galen Marek, Starkiller from The Force Unleashed. Starkiller was Darth Vader's apprentice, so just all looping it back around. The Saw Gerrera character was featured during Season 5 of The Clone Wars. He's also getting ready to show up on Star Wars Rebels. So speaking of which, there are a bunch of Star Wars Rebels Easter eggs. The Ghost shows up on Yavin 4 when they land. It's on another landing pad just sitting there. That's captained by Syndulla, who is General Syndulla, gets a shout out during Rogue One. Like you literally hear someone call for General Syndulla. So for those that don't know, Rogue One happens after the events of Star Wars Rebels, so she's risen in the ranks of the Rebels to become a general. When they learn about the Rebels going to the Imperial Archives to steal the Death Star plans, Chopper rolls by Mon Mothma, and then during the battle, a little bit later in the movie, you see the Ghost enter the fray. So like it's here in this big starfield here. Then you hear the character Pow shout one of Zeb's famous curse words, Karabast, as he's charging the beach. So this last one's a bit of a stretch, but the Hammerhead Corvette that gets the shout out that belongs to Princess Leia, obviously a big reference to what happens at the beginning of episode 4, but during the events of Star Wars Rebels, they explain how the Rebellion comes into possession of those and how Princess Leia gets one herself. So a whole bunch of Rebels in there. They ended up using a bunch of the animated stuff, even though it's very lightly and kind of in the background. But then you have very big things like Kyber crystals, which actually started out in Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the crystals that most Jedi use inside their lightsabers, being refined and used to power the Death Star laser. So that is why the super laser is green. There was also some abandoned storyline from George Lucas when he was first conceiving of episode 4 that used the Kyber crystal as a sort of MacGuffin, but that storyline was abandoned and it became the Death Star plans. There was the blue milk at the beginning of the film, sort of like Luke Skywalker's beginning, living with Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen before things went sideways and the Imperials came. Didn't quite end with the charred skeletons that they did in episode 4. But you may have noticed that Mon Mothma, the actress that played her, was the same one who played her during Revenge of the Sith. It was actually a deleted scene, so you might not have actually seen it in the movie if you didn't have the DVD, but it's another one of those Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor situations whereby an actor plays a younger version of a character. They get a little bit older in real life, but the characters themselves are also aged up in these new movies. So in real life, she becomes a more age-appropriate Mon Mothma for the time period of this movie. You may have recognized Barristan Selmy from Game of Thrones. There were a lot of familiar faces from genre TV, but he was playing General Jan Dodonna, who was a very big figure during episode 4. Then of course you all recognize Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa coming back from the prequels. So he made a number of references to other people as he was leaving to go back to Alderaan. Too bad we know how that ends. But he talks about trusting someone with his life. He's talking about his daughter, Princess Leia, who they brought back just like Grand Moff Tarkin with digital reproduction. In the Jedi that he was going to contact was Obi-Wan Kenobi in hiding on Tatooine waiting for Luke Skywalker to come of age. Things were happening pretty quickly at the end of the film, so if you didn't pick up on it, they were like literally taking the plans to Princess Leia, just barely got there as Darth Vader was slicing them down, and as they're pulling away from the wreckage, he chases them down in the opening moments of episode 4. So effectively, what you could do, the way this is designed, is that you could make a supercut by just jamming Rogue One in episode 4 together, and there'd be a seamless transition between the end of that movie and the beginning of episode 4. Who could forget Walrus Man? Jin actually bumps into Dr. Cornelius and Walrus Man, who are just as big of assholes before he runs into Obi-Wan Kenobi in the cantina and they both get themselves killed. So there were a ton of people in this movie that showed up right before you knew they were getting ready to die during episode 4. So let's talk about Grand Moff Tarkin coming back. This is actually reportedly some of the changes they made late on in the film, decided to add a lot more of him, but whether you guys liked it or not, they totally brought him back to life with a digital reproduction. I really think that if you're a younger person seeing this movie, it probably didn't bother you as much. But if you're an older person and you understand that the actor that's playing him died a long time ago, then it gets a little bit weird. So if you can jump over that hurdle, I think it was okay, just as long as they don't do this all the time. Like, I don't want to see Anakin and like every character that's ever died come back as a digital reproduction in every single movie. More Empire stuff. This actually gets really cool. Vader's castle on Mustafar. So this is actually taken from original art that Ralph McQuarrie did before Return of the Jedi that was then later scrapped. He had a palace that was supposed to be on a volcano planet. Later, George Lucas made the prequels that became Mustafar, so that is where his temple is. How fitting that he built it on the site of that epic fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Bacta tank was also a really nice touch too. It's not necessarily an Easter egg for Empire Strikes Back Luke in the Bacta tank, but it definitely invokes a lot of that imagery. The temple that Donnie Yen and the other people were supposed to be guarding before the Wills all went away or were killed is actually a reference to the Wills that George Lucas originally wrote into his first Star Wars treatment. It was originally called The Adventures of Luke Starkiller as taken from the journals of the Wills. So nice, real big deep cut for original George Lucas stuff. They do that a lot. They'll try to include little Easter eggs from things that George Lucas cut out a long time ago, from his original scripts or from original Ralph McQuarrie art like Darth Vader's palace. There were all kinds of verbal references to jokes from other people in the Star Wars franchise, like K2SO making the joke about the odds of him being shot with her blaster. They're high, very high. And then we have to talk about all those names that Jin read off when they were looking for the Stardust plans in the archive. So she's scrolling down a bunch of random names for plans of buildings and projects and finally says Black Saber. There was a giant group of people in my theater that screamed when they said that name. People were like, are they talking about the Dark Saber? What's going on here? Is this something that's going to come back into the canon? Because there is no such thing as Black Saber in the Star Wars universe right now. So that's really just them teasing something coming. They could have been talking about Darth Vader's Super Star Destroyer, the Executor, but that's probably not it. It's probably just something else that they're throwing out there that they can pick up and run with in the new films. So the Dark Saber is a black-bladed lightsaber that was constructed during the Old Republic era, then was stolen by Mandalorians and appeared during the Clone Wars episodes when Obi-Wan Kenobi was on Mandalore. Later it passed into the possession of Darth Maul, who then brought it back on Star Wars Rebels recently in a recent episode. So the Dark Saber has made it full circle. So just remember that archive is an archive of all the giant buildings and big construction projects that the Empire is building. So whatever Black Saber is, it's some giant project. So there was a book in the expanded universe called Dark Saber that was basically like a smaller version of the Death Star. It was mostly just the super laser with like very little construction around it. So it was built to look like a giant lightsaber. But you guys can let me know, what were your favorite Easter eggs that you spotted during Rogue One, and what do you think that Black Saber is a reference to? If there were any Easter eggs you guys spotted that I did not include in the video, just write them below in the comments. There were thousands of visual things, really small behind-the-scenes details that we probably won't find out about till we watch the film like a billion more times. I'm still going to be doing a bunch of Star Wars stuff in the next couple of weeks, but I'm going to wait to do some more of the spoilery stuff till next week after everybody gets a chance to see the movie. I'll talk about Darth Vader anthology films and why there's probably not going to be one. Really, it stems from the idea of scarcity. Like, there were a couple Darth Vader lines in the movie that I felt like were weird. He's better when he's not talking and just being super menacing. Like that end fight when he's just slashing them all down. No words, just going to town. But I also have a really cool Flash versus Iris West video that I'm going to post tomorrow morning, and then there'll be some Game of Thrones, Walking Dead on Monday. So I'll just post updates on the video schedule as I post new videos. While you guys wait for that to post, you can click here for my review of the movie, and you can click here for a couple big DC trailers that I just dropped. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.